ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلوات الله وسلامه وبركاته عليه. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد فإن خير الكلام كلام الله وأحسن هدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. We continue Kitaab At-Tawheed, 7:40 p.m. Sunday, February the 24th, which is now in the month, or we're still in the month of Jumad al-Thani or Jumad al-Akhirah. Actually, the 19th night of Jumad al-Akhirah, 1440 after the Hijrah of Mustafa alayhi salatu wasalam, 7:49 p.m. Sunday, February the 24th. And we're still in the chapter of what comes in Taghlid في باب ما جاء في التغليظ في من عبد الله عند قبر رجل صالح. As we continue, Ya Ma'ash al-Ikhwa, in this chapter, and we were discussing the affair of women visiting the graves, and we were given details in this regard. We were explaining the statement of the great Imam Muhammad Nasruddin al-Albani rahimahullah, where you mentioned that he said النساء كالرجال في استحباب زيارة القبور لوجوه. As we discussed last class, it says الأول عموم قوله فزور القبور فيدخل فيه النساء وبيانه أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم لما نهى عن زيارة القبور في أول الأمر فلا شك أن النهي كان شاملا للرجال والنساء معا. فلما قال كنت نهيتكم عن زيارة القبور كان مفهوما أنه كان يعني الجنسين، ضرورة أنه يخبرهم عما كان في أول الأمر من نهي الجنسين. So we said, and he mentioned that he said when the message of Allah prohibited the men, that the actual hukum was also for the women at the same time, in the first part of the wahi, in the first part of the revelation. Due to the fact when the message of Allah that he said after the prohibition was raised and it was lifted, he said in the narration for Zurul Qubur, he said, visit the graves to the end of the narration in order to remember the hereafter and also to make dua for those who died upon the millah, upon the way of Islam. So in the message of Allah in the first part of the revelation, when he prohibited the graves, like we said, the great Imam al-Albani, he goes on to say, he said, no doubt that the prohibition was comprehensive for both men and women together. Due to the fact that the message of Allah in the first part of the revelation, he said, verily I prohibited you from visiting the graves. He said, what is understood is that it was covered for both what? For both parties. He says, out of the dire necessity that when the message of Allah was informing them of what was in the first affair of the prohibition, what came to the mind of the people that it was what? It was for both. It was for men and women at one time. And if the affair was like that, as we mentioned, it says كان لزاما أن الخطاب في الجملة الثانية من الحديث وهو قوله فزوروها فإنما أراد به الجنسين أيضا. He said now it's binding that the addressment in the second part, in the second narration when he allowed it, in the second part of the narration, of the hadith, when he allowed it, when he said, visit the graves. So the prohibition at one time was for both, And then when he raised it and he allowed it, it was now for what? For both. So we can't just say now it was prohibited for what? For the men, and it just now became allowed just for the men. Or excuse me, it was prohibited for the men and the women at both at one time. Then later it was just made for the what? The men without the women. He said that's not understood. He said there's no narration saying that. He says due to the fact that the hukum, you'll find that certain parts of the revelation with the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, when he gave prohibitions, and first part of the revelation in Mecca, for example, he said where the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, he used to prohibit not only khamr, meaning that of course we know that khamr was in degrees, it was in steps, but when he prohibited the drinking of intoxicants, he also prohibited at one time the drinking out of the vessels that they used to also likewise drink the intoxicants out of at one time. Meaning, when the narration says, "Nahaytukum anin nabidh illa fi siqa'in fashrabu fil asqiya kulliha wa la tashrabu muskira." He said, "I prohibited you from nabidh, except fi siqa'in." He said, "Except in a siqa or in a container." But at one time, we know if you get to into the narrations of Bukhari, the Messenger of Allah at one time prohibited that not only the intoxicants be consumed, but also the vessels it was consumed out of. That's why it says in this narration, he said, "Fashrabu fil asqiya." Drink out of those vessels, all of them, and don't drink intoxicants, meaning the actual cups. Drink out of the cup if something was halal, meaning once the revelation or the iman of the Sahaba at that particular time, when it became strong, all of it was prohibited. Not only just intoxicants, but the vessels they used to consume it out of fear that they might be tempted to what? Drink it. He said, but once they became strong and deep-rooted of iman, in the latter part of the revelation, then what remained was the what? Consumption of intoxicants, with it being halal to drink out of what? Those vessels. Meaning out of the container. Meaning out of the cup, basically. Just to keep it simple. Out of the cup. You can drink out of the cup, out of a regular cup. Just do not consume what? Intoxicants. But the point of why the great Imam was mentioning this is to say that when that prohibition likewise was there, it was for men and women both. And then likewise when it was raised and the Messenger of Allah gave the permission, it was also comprehensive for who? Men and women. So that's the point he's just trying to make here. That's it. So he says likewise when we say فَزُورُوهَا خَاص بِالرِّجَالِ اِخْتَلَ نِظَامِ الْكَلَامِ وذهبت طراوته الأمر الذي لا يليق بمن أوتي جوامع الكلم وهو أفصح من نطق بالضاد. To the end of it. He said, when he said visit the grave, he says saying that it's only specifically for men, he said that infringes upon the system of speech. How speech is supposed to be what? How it's supposed to be systematic, what's understood from it. He said that's why we say it's not befitting that the one who is giving Jawami al-Kalam, who used to say small words but have tremendous meanings, that to say that when he mentioned this, it was only specifically for the what? For the men, and that the women were prohibited. He said that's so far-fetched that we will not understand it from the speech. Basically, he's trying to say when the Messenger of Allah allowed it for the men, it was also allowed for who? For the women too. It was allowed for the women also. So listen what he goes on to say. He says, secondly, due to the reason of why the Messenger of Allah, in the later part of the revelation, in the later part, he says, the men likewise same in the share illah, or the same reason of why the Messenger of Allah had likewise what? Legislated the visiting of graves, where he mentioned in the narration that it allows the heart to be what? Moistened and loose, or it breaks down the heart, and allows the tears to flow, and it reminds of the hereafter. So likewise, we say the same for the men, same thing. Likewise for the women, it reminds them of the hereafter. It also allows the heart to become soft, and it also allows the tears to what? To flow in the eyes, and likewise it reminds of the hereafter. So the third and the other part that he mentioned is said. Likewise, the hadith of al-Mu'mineen, Isha radiallahu anha. This is where we stopped at last class. There's a narration on the authority Abdullah ibn Abi Mulaika that Aisha radiallahu anha أقبلت ذات يوم من المقابر فقلت لها يا المؤمنين من أين أقبلتِ قالت من قبر عبد الرحمن ابن أبي بكر فقلت لها أليس كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم نهى عن زيارتها يعني زيارة القبور قالت نعم ثم أمر بزيارتها وفي رواية عنها أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم رخص في زيارة القبور. We talked about this narration last class. We said that al-Mu'mineen, it was asked Abdullah ibn Abi Mulaika. We know Abdullah ibn Abi Mulaika من رجال الصحيحين ومن رواة الصحيحين من Bukhari Muslim. He's also thiqa. He was the imam that he was also reliable in his narrations. But at any rate, the Aisha that she was what? Returning one day from the graves. And I said to her, O mother of the believers, where are you coming from? Or where are you on your way back to? Where are you coming from? He said, from the grave of my brother, Abdurrahman ibn Abi Bakr. I said to her, didn't the Messenger of Allah prohibit visiting the graves? She said, yes. Then he commanded that it be visited, meaning later on. Keep listening to everything I'm saying because there's important prerequisites and stipulations for this affair. It's not just it's permissible just like that. There's other things I want to mention. So keep in mind, everybody stay with me. Nobody be jump the gun. They probably listening to what I'm saying now. Cut the internet off. And they cut the internet off, not realizing the other details that I'm going to give. They miss out on something very important. طيب, we said that this narration, as Ibn Abdul Barr, that he mentioned At-Tawheed by the chain of the narration, was from Bistam ibn Muslim. Bistam ibn Muslim. عن أبي التياح يزيد بن حميد عن عبد الله ابن أبي مليكة والرواية الأخرى لابن ماجه. As we said, that the isnad of the chain has been related by Al-Hakim and Al-Bayhaqi and Ibn Abdul Barr in his tremendous treatise entitled Tamheed. But anyway, the chain starts from Bistam ibn Muslim. And we said that Ibn al-Qayyim in Ma'alim al-Sunan, which is the sharh of Sunnah Abi Dawood, they said that the narration was weak because of him, Bistam ibn Muslim. However, the great Imam al-Albani, as we know, he was wasi'ul ittila'. Imam al-Albani is exactly who Shaykh Uthaymeen described him as. That he is طويل الباع قوي الإقناع شديد الاطلاع. Shaykh Uthaymeen described Imam al-Albani with three characteristics. He said he was what? He was طويل الباع قوي الإقناع شديد الاطلاع. Shaykh Muhammad Salih al-Uthaymeen described Imam al-Albani as being طويل الباع, meaning that his knowledge was extremely long and vast. قوي الإقناع, that he was very strong in convincing you of his position. Meaning he was very what? Strong in his evidence and establishing against the person. And he was also shadidul ittila', that he had information in which you see, based upon his knowledge he was given, that he has a lot, not comprehend, but he has a lot of extensive information of a lot of books that he's read and covered. So Shaykh Uthaymeen said this about Shaykh al-Albani. One of the reasons of why we're saying this is because Ibn al-Qayyim had said that Bistam ibn Muslim is the reason why this narration is what? Weak. And Ibn al-Qayyim said, let's just say in the case that it is authentic, he said that maybe Aisha just understood that narration at her time. She didn't properly grasp the proper hukum at the time. Shaykh al-Albani said that, we say that when he was now also investigating the narration, and he was discussing this affair with Ibn al-Qayyim. He said that Ibn al-Qayyim, we would say that he, rahimahullah, will be rewarded for his ijtihad, but maybe perhaps he might have made a mistake in this regard. Why? Because he said that Imam al-Albani used the evidence of the great Imam Ahl-Sunnah, Imam Ahmad. Imam Ahmad said, and when it was asked, as we know in the Su'alat of Imam Ahmad, as we know Imam Ahmad had a lot of students, and from his students was Abu Bakr ibn al-Athram. And a lot of them. His son, Abu Bakr al-Athram. You got Abu Bakr Also Al-Marudhi and Ibn Khalal. It's a lot of companions of Imam Ahmad. But at any rate, Abu Bakr al-Athram said that I heard from Imam Ahmad when he was asked about a woman visiting the grave. And Imam Ahmad said this answer. He said, Arju insha'Allah an la yakuna bihi ba's. Aisha zarat qabra akhiha. Imam Ahmad said, I hope that there's no problem with this. Aisha visited the grave of her brother, which is to show what, everyone? That Imam Ahmad said that this isnad or this chain and this narration is with him was what? It's authentic. It was authentic. Or else Imam Ahmad would not have used it as a what? As a proof. So Imam Ahmad used it as a what, everyone? Used it as a proof. It was to show that what? That this narration was authentic. Also, there's a narration where Abdul Jabbar ibn al-Ward, that he heard from Abdullah ibn Abi Mulaika. He's the narrator of this hadith of Aisha. يقول ركبت عفوا ركبت عائشة فخرج إلينا غلامها فقلت أين ذهبت أم المؤمنين قال ذهبت إلى قبر أخيها عبد الرحمن تسلم عليه ولا يعله ما أخرجه الترمذي من طريق ابن جريج عن عبد الله بن أبي مليكة لما توفي عبد الرحمن بن أبي بكر بالحبشي مكان بينه وبين مكة 12 ميلا. Anyway, just to show that this narration, likewise, to put some emphasis on it, there's another narration that Abdullah ibn Abi Mulaika, he said, I'm sorry, everyone. Abdul Jabbar ibn al-Warad said that I heard from Abdullah ibn Abi Mulaika. He said, Aisha rakibat, that she had boarded her riding beast, and she what? فَخَرَجَ إِلَيْنَا غُلَامُهَا. He said basically the one who was a slave of hers and a servant of hers said, فَقُلْتُ, I asked Abdullah ibn Mulaika, her ghulam, her servant, I asked her, where did al-Mu'mineen, where did she go? Where is she going? He said that she went to the grave of her brother Abdul Rahman to give him salams. This is another narration. So that shows, just to prove the point, that what? This narration is authentic. That Aisha knew about the what? Prohibition of the message of Allah. And then later on, she still what? Visited the grave. She also had knowledge of its what? Of its permission after it was what? Prohibited. So she had knowledge of both affairs. Also likewise, is a narration of the authority of Muhammad ibn Qais ibn Makhrama ibn al-Muttalib, that he said one day, أَلَا أُحَدِّثُكُمْ عَنِّي وَعَنْ أُمِّي, would I not tell you about me and my mother? فَظَنَنَّا أَنَّهُ يُرِيدُ أُمَّهُ الَّتِي وَلَدَتْهُ. We thought that he was intending his mother that gave him birth. He said, no, he's talking about the mother of the believers, Aisha. He said, when I not tell you about me and the message of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? So now he started saying a story. قُلْنَا بَلَى. So then he started referring to what he heard from Aisha. Now listen to this long story. Let me just read it in English. It says, there was one night that in which the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says that he was with me. انقلب ووضع رداءه, meaning that the Messenger of Allah was in the house of Aisha one day. So the Messenger of Allah, he returned back to the house and he's put his robe up. Before he left out, of course. He returned back to the house. He put his robe up. Was it his robe or stove? He put it up. Took off his shoes. And he put them by his feet. Then the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he basata tarfa izarihi ala firashe, and he spread the end of his izar upon where he was going to lay down, upon his bed. Then he lay down, alayhi salatu wasalam. He said he did not remain a moment in time except that he what? Stood up. He says, رَيْثَمَا ظَهَرَ أَنَّهُ قَدْ رَقَدْتُ. When he got up, when he woke up, he thought I was still what? Sleep. رَقَدْتُ. I was still asleep and laying down. So the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam stood up. فَأَخَذَ رِدَاءَهُ رُوَيْدًا. He said that he carefully took his what? He took his robe, his clothes, his garments. He also likewise carefully put on his shoes. وَانْتَعْلَ رُوَيْدًا. He put on the sandals carefully. He opened the door slowly, carefully, so he won't cause any disturbance. He left out. Then ثم أجافه رويدا. He said ثم أجافه رويدا. He left out and he set out carefully. He says then Aisha said, I stood up then. I stood up فجعلت درعي في رأسي واختمرت وتقنعت إزاري ثم انطلقت على إثره ثم جاء البقيع حتى جاء البقيع فقام فطال القيام ثم رفع يديه 3 مرات ثم انحرف فانحرفت وأسرع فأسرعت فهرول فهرولت فأحضرت فسبقته فدخلت. طيب. Then Aisha likewise, she also got dressed. She started wearing her clothes. And she said, I put my khimar on and I covered myself up, put my garments on, and I left out. She said, I set out upon his tracks and his trail. In the same, route that he took, I set out behind him. He says, until the Messenger of Allah came to the Baqi'. We know the Baqi' is what, everyone? It's the grave site right next to the masjid in Medina right now. The big, huge grave is called the Baqi'. It's still there. Huge, huge graveyard. Very huge. Right next to the masjid of the Prophet ﷺ al-Medina. Said that the Messenger of Allah came to the grave of the Baqi' and he stood for a very long time. And he raised his hands 3 times. He says then he started to what? Go off to the side. So Aisha was standing behind her. She said, I went off to the side. Then the Messenger of Allah started hastening. Started moving fast, quickly. She said, I started moving fast and quickly. You guys cold? Are you warm or is it cold in here? Is that all right? So then the Messenger of Allah started moving fast. I started moving fast. So he started to jog. I started to jog. Keep in mind, the Prophet ﷺ saw Aisha. He saw her. She thought he didn't see her, but he saw her. So now, he said he started to jog. I started to jog. فأحضرت فسبقته. He said, so then he returned, he came back, he came in the house. He said, likewise, I entered, and I beat him to the house. I entered the house. فَلَيْسَ إِلَّا أَنَّ اضْطَجَعْتُ. It wasn't except for me, or was there anything left except for me to what? Just lay down. Just act like I was still asleep. فَدَخَلْ. So the Messenger of Allah came in. فَقَالَ. So the Messenger of Allah knew what she did. He said, what's wrong with you, Aisha? Why you? He said, مَا لَكِ عَائِشْ. مَا لَكِ عَائِشْ. This shows that you can also, this narration shows you can also what? You can also call someone by their nickname. Like it's like, for example, someone's name is, this is like Ahmed, you say, what's up, Ah? You understand? The Messenger of Allah said, Ya Aish. So the Messenger of Allah just, what? Shortened it. Ya Aish. Like saying Ahmed, you just say, what's up, Ah? What's got? Ah. So she said, Ya Aish. What's wrong with you, Hashi and Rabia? So why are you looking so worn out and tired? What's wrong with you? Wahshan. You didn't looking all sweaty like you just jog or you was running or something. She said, قالت قلت لا شيء. Nothing. O Messenger of Allah. He says, you will most definitely tell me, or the one who's all aware, and the one who's all courteous and courteous and all aware will tell me. قالت. She said, O Messenger of Allah, بأبي أنت وأمي. My mother and father be put in your place for you. I فأخبرته الخبر قال فأنت السوداء الذي رأيته أمامي. He said, then I informed the Messenger of Allah what happened. And the Messenger of Allah said, were you that black spot that I seen in front of me? Were you that? He said, فأنت السوداء الذي رأيته أمامي. Were you that little black little motion that I seen in front of me? قلت نعم. I said yes. The Messenger of Allah فلهزني في صدري لهزة أوجعتني. Said that the Messenger of Allah that he struck me. He struck me in my chest. He said, a strike, it caused me a little bit of pain. Just listen. He said, ثُمَّ that because the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If I get to the sharh of this, you will think why. You will see why he did it. What do you think why he snuck out with him? Huh? I mean, just see what he was doing. That's easy. Huh? That the Messenger of Allah was doing something that was not impermissible, but something that was suspicious. To have bad thoughts about him. You said that's typical. That's a woman, huh? Stop it alone. Don't say that. I don't understand what you're saying. So the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this type of suspicion, the Messenger of Allah said this to Aisha to basically discipline her. He said, أَظَنَنْتِ أَن يَحِيفَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْكِ وَرَسُولُهُ. Do you think that Allah would do some injustice upon you and His Messenger? قالت مهما يكتم الناس يعلمه الله. قال نعم. He says, then Aisha pardoned herself by saying, no matter what the people try to hide, Allah knows. The Prophet ﷺ said, yes, of course. Then the Messenger of Allah started explaining what happened. He said, verily Jibreel came to me. He says, when you seen me, and Jibreel called me, فَأَخْفَاهُ مِنْكِ فَأَجَبْتُهُ. And they say he was hidden from you, and I answered him. He said, and I what? فَأَخْفَيْتُهُ مِنْكِ. And also was hidden, I was hiding him or concealing him from you. وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لِيَدْخُلَ عَلَيْكِ وَقَدْ وَضَعْتِ ثِيَابَكِ. Listen to this. He says that Jibreel, he said, he didn't want to enter upon you. He said, due to the fact that you removed your clothes. Is it clear so far what I'm saying? So Jibreel was what? Did not want to enter upon the Aisha out of shine is for the Messenger of Allah's what? Wife. That Jibreel didn't want to enter in the room. Due to the fact that Aisha was what? Uncovered, undressed. طيب. He said, وَظَنَنْتُ أَنْ قَدْ رَقَدْتِ. I thought that you indeed went to sleep. And I had detested that I wake you. وَخَشِيتُ أَن تَسْتَوْحِشْ. And I said out of fear, and I had feared that you would start to feel alone if I woke you up. You'll be alone by yourself. So Jibreel said, إِنَّ رَبَّكَ يَأْمُرُكَ أَن تَأْتِيَ أَهْلَ الْبَقِيعِ فَتَسْتَغْفِرَ لَهُمْ. قالت قلت كيف أقول لهم يا رسول الله؟ قال قولي السلام على أهل الديار من المؤمنين والمسلمين ويرحم الله المستقدمين منا والمستأخرين وإنا إن شاء الله بكم للاحقون. Then this is the point of reference of why we mention this hadith. A person would say, well, what's this have to do with what we're talking about now? AbdurRazzaaq of a woman visiting the graves. It goes right here. This is the point of the hadith. Verily, Jibreel said to the Messenger of Allah, verily your Lord commanded you that you go to the Baqi', and that you seek forgiveness for them. Qalat, she said, Qultu, I said, meaning Aisha, what do I say, O Messenger of Allah, if I was to go to the grave? What was I supposed to say if I was to what? Go to the grave. This is a clear evidence to show what? The woman can what? Is in the grave. He said, Messenger of Allah said, say, salams upon Ahl al-Diyar, for the people of the grave, from the mu'mineen and the muslimeen. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mercy upon the mustaqdimeen, minna wal mustakhirin, those who preceded from those who came later. And verily, insha'Allah, with you, we most definitely will be joining you. Or catching up to you, meaning joining you. طيب. So that is to show what? Went to the grave to remind the hereafter and to also make dua. To make dua. طيب. Listen to the great Imam al-Albani goes on to say. He said, والحديث استدل به الحافظ في التلخيص على جواز الزيارة للنساء وهو ظاهر الدلالة عليه. All right, this down. This is important. This hadith was used as an evidence by al-Hafiz. Who, everyone? Who's al-Hafiz? Ahmed ibn Ali ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, who died المتوفى سنة 852, who died 852 after the Hijrah, the great Imam who authored the book Fath al-Bari, which is the explanation of Bukhari, Al-Hafidh ibn Hajar al-Asqalani. And also we go over the book with the sisters every Sunday, Bulugh al-Maram. That author, the Imam Al-Hafidh ibn Hajar al-Asqalani wrote a book called Talkhis al-Habir. I have the book, it's 3 volumes. It's called Talkhis al-Habir. Just listen. Talkhis al-Habir. Al-Hafidh ibn Hajar al-Asqalani said that this hadith right here is used to show the permissibility of visiting the graves for the women. Hafidh ibn Hajar. وَهُوَ ظَاهِرُ الدَّلَالَةِ عَلَيْهِ. And that is what's manifested with the evidence, what? Point to. So Hafidh ibn Hajar al-Asqalani said what? Said that this hadith here is used as a what? As a evidence for what, everyone? For the permissibility of the women to what? Jayyid. So it says in here, وهو يؤيد أن الرخصة شملتهن مع الرجال. يعني القصة إنما كانت في المدينة لما هو معلوم أنه صلى الله عليه وسلم بنى بعائشة في المدينة، والنهي إنما كان في أول الأمر في مكة، ونحن نجزم بهذا وإن كنا لا نعرف تاريخا يؤيد ذلك، لأن الاستنتاج الصحيح يشهد لهذا، وذلك من قوله to the end of it كنت نهيتكم إلى آخر الحديث. طيب. So he says, Al-Hafidh ibn Hajar had mentioned and said, likewise, this narration aids that when the Messenger of Allah gave permission, which also was comprehensive for the women with the men, as far as in the hukum, in the ruling. He said the story here took place in Al-Madinah. He says of what is known that the Messenger of Allah, that he what? That he married Aisha, and that he also consummated with Aisha, and where everyone? In Mecca, Al-Madinah. And the prohibition was in the first part of the revelation, or first part of the affair, meaning in the revelation where? In Mecca. First part of the revelation. The prohibition was when? In Mecca. He says, and we have surety of this. He says, we do not know the exact date. However, this right here, this narration supports that. He says, because the istintaj al-sahih, which says, or, the conclusive evidence, it also indicates that. And to bear witness to what we're talking about. Due to the fact that the Messenger of Allah said, I used to prohibit you from visiting the graves. He said it clear. He says, no one, it's hence that no one will understand from this type of prohibition except that this prohibition was what? In the first part. And when the Messenger of Allah made this statement, I used to prohibit you. Where was that made, this statement? It's past tense, but he's saying it when and where? In Medina. In Medina, kuntu nahitukum. I used to prohibit you, but now visit it. That's the whole hadith. This statement was made where? In Medina. This statement was here in Al-Medina. It was in Mecca. So when he said, kuntu nahaytukum, when I used to prohibit you, no one understands except that this prohibition, that it was what? That was made in Medina. And like now, when he made this statement, that was in the time of Al-Medina where he said this statement that now made it permissible. He says, كان الذي وكان أكثر ما شرع فيه من الأحكام إنما هو فيما يتعلق بالتوحيد والعقيدة. He says, due to the fact in the first part of the revelation, he says, when the revelation first started, what was legislated of the ahkam, all of it was connected with tawheed and aqidah. Meaning in Mecca. First part of revelation, majority of it was all connected with what? Tawheed, aqidah, about what? Yawm al-Qiyam, the belief in the hereafter, the belief in the angels, the belief of the recompense, the day of resurrection, to the end of it. And the unseen, the affairs of the unseen. He said, كان أكثر ما شرع فيه من الأحكام إنما هو فيما يتعلق بالتوحيد والعقيدة والنهي عن الزيارة من هذا القبيل لأنها كانت من باب سد الذرائع وتشريعه إنما يناسب العهد المكي لأن الناس كانوا فيه حديثي عهد بالإسلام وعهدهم بالشرك كان قريبا. He said, due to the fact in the first part of Mecca, he said that the prohibition of visiting the graves is from this type, meaning in the first part of Revelation, due to the fact that the Messenger of Allah wanted to shut off all the doors that maybe might lead down the road to what? Paganism and polytheism again. So he highly restricted it in the first part. And due to the fact that that was legislated in the first part, during that time in Mecca, because the people were just new to Islam. People at that time were new to what? Islam, and they were close to the time of what? Shirk, that these left off. So the message of Allah prohibited them for that particular time. So it would not be a means or methods for them to fall into polytheism again. He says, until when Tawheed became settled and deep-rooted in their hearts. And they knew what would oppose it of the different types. And they knew to have absolute knowledge of shirk and all of its different types and what would lead down to it. All those affairs became clear to the Sahaba. It was laid down. Then the message of Allah after that gave what? Permission. After the people were well deep-rooted, where everyone? Deep-rooted in the affairs of Tawheed. That's the reason why we're learning this book. Here. So notice that the message of Allah focused on this, the first part of Revelation. When this was settled, and they knew the shirk, Tawheed and shirk, then the message of Allah later what? Gave him permission. What would we say to those Sufis now today and the Rawafid? They would be highly prohibited to the fact that you need to learn Tawheed over and over again. You understand what I'm saying? طيب وأما أن يدعوهم طيلة العهد المكي على عادتهم في الزيارة ثم ينهاهم عنها في المدينة فهو بعيد جدا عن حكمة التشريع ولهذا جزمنا بأن النهي إنما كان تشريعه في مكة فإذا كان كذلك فإذنه لعائشة بالزيارة في المدينة دليل واضح على ما ذكرنا فتأمله فإنه شيء انقدح في النفس ولم أرى من شرحه على هذا الوجه فإن أصبت فمن الله وإن أخطأت فمن نفسي. جيد. He's saying basically what we just mentioned here. Put more emphasis on it. طيب. Next hadith that the great Imam Muhammad Nasr al-Albani uses another evidence. He says إقرار النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم المرأة التي رآها عند القبر في حديث أنس ابن مالك. مر رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم بامرأة عند قبر وهي تبكي فقال لها اتقي الله واصبري. The hadith of the Messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم also likewise. When the Messenger of Allah had what? إقرار النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم المرأة التي رآها عند القبر. When the Messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم, he acknowledged the woman that he saw crying by the grave. On the hadith of Anas. Why am I emphasizing Anas, everyone? When did Anas take Shahada, everyone? Was it in Mecca or Medina? When did Anas ibn Malik became Muslim? These are the things that all the ulama look at. Anas ibn Malik, when did he become Muslim? Was it in Mecca or Al-Medina? Good guess. Good guess. Jayid, just listen. That's the reason why I'm stressing the word what? I'm stressing Anas ibn Malik's name. Due to the fact that Anas ibn Malik became Muslim during the time in Al-Medina. Just listen. Just listen. The Messenger of Allah ﷺ passed by a woman, by a grave, and she was crying. The Messenger of Allah said, fear Allah, be patient. As we know from the usul, of those who learned the usul, of what the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, his duty, if it was something that was prohibited, he would have said it. As they say in usul, لا يجوز تأخير البيان عن وقت الحاجة. That is a principle you guys need to learn. That it was لا يجوز تأخير البيان عن وقت الحاجة. It was not permissible, meaning from as far as the revelation and the message of Allah, carrying out his duty and what Allah protected. That the message of Allah will put out some clarification if there was a necessity to do so. Meaning, if it was a necessity, the message of Allah would have what? Said it. If there was a prohibition, he would have said it. And if there was a legislation, he would have said it. And if there was something permissible, he would have what? Said it. He did not say it here. She was clearly by the grave. If there was something prohibited, Allah would have sent down a revelation. Fear Allah. Go away. Get away from the graves. Go away. It's not permissible for you to be here. Rather, the message of Allah said, what? Fear Allah. Be patient for what has happened of the one who's deceased. What took place? The one who's dead. Is it getting cold in here a little bit? Is it starting to get a little? I am getting a little cold. It is some wind or something coming in. It's probably from under the ground or whatever. You can feel it in your neck. What, the women's bathroom? Yeah, they supposed to be going back there too. Coming back on? I hear it coming back on. طيب. So it says that the message of Allah that he went by a grave and a woman was crying. She said, fear Allah. Prophet said, fear Allah, be patient. This narration is where everyone, Al-Bukhari, and other than Al-Bukhari. وقد مضى بتمامه في المسألة وترجم له باب زيارة القبور. قال الحافظ في الفتح موضع الدلالة منه أنه صلى الله عليه وسلم لم ينكر على المرأة قعودها عند القبر وتقريره حجة. جيد. So it says this narration of Bukhari. It was narrated and it's what? It was narrated in its full narration. Listen to Al-Imam Al-Hafiz Ibn Hajar Al-Asqalani and his book in which he explains Al-Bukhari, which is called Fath Al-Bari. We explain Al-Bukhari, right everyone? And we know that all the ulama said that is the best explanation of Sahih al-Bukhari than any other explanation has been made. It's the best explanation. Fath al-Bari. As you find that Imam al-Shawkani said about Fath al-Bari, La hijra ba'd al-Fath. As he talked about Fath al-Bari, he said there's no hijrah after the Fath. That there's no migration after the Fath. Meaning there's no the better book of that explained Bukhari better than Al-Hafidh ibn Hajar in his book called Fath al-Bari. But at any rate, the great Imam Al-Hafidh ibn Hajar, he said about this narration here that we just mentioned on Anas ibn Malik, Mawdi'u dalala. He said the place of evidence from this narration, the Messenger of Allah did not what? Criticize her or rebuke her or prohibit her of her standing by the grave or her sitting and crying by the grave. And we know him making something or not or acknowledging something where he might have remained quiet or not saying anything and letting her do that. That is a hujjah, it's an argument, that's a proof. Due to the fact that we said revelation is protected. If it was something impermissible, Allah would have set something down. Because Allah is all aware of everything. In every way. Because Allah had it written down. If it was something impermissible, some revelation would have been revealed. Allah would have sent down something prohibiting that. But it wasn't. Nothing was revealed. So that, when the Messenger of Allah did not say anything, that was a what? Evidence. It was a proof. Is it clear what I'm saying? Is it clear what I'm saying so far, everyone? There's another explanation by Al-Aini. There's another explanation of Bukhari. It wasn't considered. It wasn't considered the best explanation after Fath al-Bari. But there's another explanation of Bukhari called Umdat al-Qari by Al-Aini. Umdat al-Qari by Al-Aini. He said about this narration of Anas, فيه جواز زيارة القبور مطلقا. He says, in it is the permissibility of women visiting graves in all cases. He says, it doesn't matter whether the visitor was a man or a woman, or whether the one who's being visited, meaning the deceased, is a Muslim or kafir. The one who's dead in the grave. If the person's dead in the grave, then what? He can visit it, not to give salams if he's a kafir, but to take what? Remembrance of death. That's it. If it was a Muslim, then we make dua for him. Not, then the one does not. Is it clear what I'm saying? Jayed. So listen. الإمام النووي said بالجواز قطع الجمهور وقال صاحب الحاوي يعني المرداوي والماوردي عفوا لا تجوز زيارة قبر الكافر وهو غلط خطأه في هذا الشيء. Anyway, that's not doing. Anyway, when it comes to the hadith, he was talking about the situation of whether or not you can visit the grave of a kafir. But anyway, he said he was wrong in that. وما دل عليه الحديث من جواز زيارة المرأة هو المتبادر من الحديث ولكن إنما يتم ذلك إذا كان القصة لم تقع قبل النهي وهذا هو الظاهر إذ تذكرنا ما أسلفناه من بيان أن النهي كان في مكة وأن القصة رواها أنس وهو مدني رواها أنس وهو مدني جاءت به أمه أم سليم إلى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم حين قدم المدينة وأنس ابن 10 سنين فتكون القصة مدنية فثبت أنها بعد النهي فتم الاستدلال بها على الجواز. So now I'll read this quickly. What is this hadith indicates of Anas ibn Malik? The permissibility of a woman visiting the graves, visiting the grave with the conditions that we're going to mention again and re-emphasize, because there's conditions. Don't work, so but however, with the conditions we're going to mention again and reiterate, and we're going to mention them. That is what comes to the mind of the hadith. However, that innama yatimu dhalik. Verily, this is carried out if the qissa did not take place, if the qissa took place during the prohibition. And that's not the case. It took place after the prohibition. He says, just as is preceded of the clarification that the prohibition, that it was in Mecca. This story was related by Anas ibn Malik. Anas ibn Malik was from those who became Muslim, al-Medina. He's Medini. He's from Medina. Waja'at, and his mother, Sulaym, came to the Messenger of Allah. When the Messenger of Allah came to al-Medina, and Anas ibn Malik at that time was 10 years old. So this story was what? In Medina, not in Mecca. So this hadith of Anas ibn Malik took place where, everyone? Medina. After the what? The prohibition. Is it clear what I'm saying so far? So it's been established that this is after the what? Prohibition. So now it's been carried out to utilize this as an evidence for the permissibility of what? Of the women. Is in the graves with the conditions. Now, however, even though we said these evidences, so now we're going to get to the conditions. لكن لا يجوز لهن الإكثار من زيارة القبر والتردد عليها لأن ذلك قد يفضي بهن إلى مخالفة الشريعة من مثل السياح والتبرج واتخاذ القبور مجالس للنزهة وتضييع الوقت في الكلام الفارغ كما هو مشاهد اليوم في بعض البلاد الإسلامية وهذا هو المراد إن شاء الله بالحديث المشهور لعن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم لو لعن الله زوارات القبور. He says, then he goes on to say, however, it is not permissible for them, meaning the women, to do an abundance of visiting, meaning visiting of the graves. It's not permissible to do it on a consistent basis. La. And then to repeatedly do it all the time. Hey, today, let's go to the grave. We did it last Sunday, let's do it again today. La. Is it clear? He said, because that will lead them to falling into opposing the Kitaab and Sunnah. Of what similar of what certain people do of screaming and shouting. Screaming and shouting. And also wearing impermissible clothes of tabarruj, meaning revealing their beauty and displaying their beauty. Meaning wearing inappropriate clothes that you can see their mahasin, you can see their beauty from beneath it, which is a type of tabarruj. And some of them don't even wear a overgarment, which is totally, absolute, complete tabarruj. That's absolute displayment of their what? Adornments and their beauty. He said, for all these affairs of constantly going to the grave will lead to the women shouting, screaming, wearing inappropriate clothes, displaying in their what? Their beauty, and taking the graves as placing of sittings for, like, for example, gatherings or picnics or outings. And wasting time in what? In speech that has no benefit in it, or foolish speech. He said, just as we see today in some of the Islamic countries. And this is what's intended by the hadith of the Messenger of Allah, where he said, Allah, that the Messenger of Allah curse, in another narration says, Allah curse women that constantly visit graves. That's the meaning of the hadith. Women that constantly what? Do it. We did it last week, let's do it again. Matter of fact, let's do it twice this week, 3 times this week. La. You understand? But from time to time, once from one time to the next, from time to time when something comes up of a death, time to time when you know of someone maybe that was a close friend of yours from the Muslimin, from Ahl Iman that died, as that happened to me. I went up to, what is it, in Maryland. Oh, what's the name of the place in Maryland? It's over, I forgot the name of the area. Oh, what's the name of the area that's by West Virginia? It's close to Hagerstown. Hagerstown, that's next to Hagerstown. You got West Virginia, you got Hagerstown. It's right next to it. Right next to Hagerstown in Maryland. What is the name of it? You're right there. Frederick. You hit it around the nose. You got Frederick, Hagerstown, and what? West Virginia. Tayyib. Any rate, there was a brother named Ali Ruhan, rahimallah. He died about 4 years ago. 5 years ago now. Ali Ruhan died. Buried him in Frederick. It's a Muslim grave out there. Then a year later, we passed by it and happened to see his grave. We went by, made dua for him, kept it moving. Like this. Passed by the grave of a friend from time to time, once a month, or maybe once a year, twice in 1 year, no problem. But now to be on a habitual status, you're constantly doing it or consistently doing it, this is what we're saying is what? Prohibited. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? If this falls under the hadith, where if a woman starts to do this consistently, this is where the la'na will what? This is where the la'na or the curse of the Messenger of Allah and Allah will fall on the woman. So is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Tayyib. So what do we sum up from this? Just to sum up everything. And that goes back for the men in that narration. Tayyib. Just to sum up everything. That now if a woman asks, can I go to the grave of my mother who's died because she was Muslim and I want to give her salams, whatever. Tayyib. First thing that should be looked at, number one, whether or not the woman is very emotional. If she's really emotional to the point where something will happen of what they call infi'alat nafsiyah, like something she would do with some acts that's based upon her emotions, that it would cause her to fall into something permissible, do not let her go. Meaning that if she's going to now rip off her clothes or slap her cheeks or scream and holler or say, whoa, why did this have to happen to my mother? All those affairs, you feel that her emotions are going to overwhelm her, do not allow her to visit the grave. That shows that the aqidah and the what? There's some extreme khalal. There's some weakness there. And if you notice that if she's very emotional, do not allow her to what? Visit the grave at all. Due to the fact that she might fall into something what? Impermissible. Of displayment of discontentment for Allah's qadr. Because we know that all these affairs are what? Impermissible. Slapping the cheeks or screaming. Why does this have to happen to my mother? All that shows discontentment for what, everyone? Allah's qadr. And it's displeasure for Allah's qadr. That, and also what it might lead to of what? Of her falling into something else. Either a shirk or something, a belief in bad omens, or what have you. Tayyib. All those affairs, if you're afraid that she's going to fall into this, do not let her visit. Especially if you see her to be very, very what? Emotional. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Where her emotions are going to get the best of her and make her fall into something what? Impermissible. Especially if it's going to make her moody for a week straight. Do not let her do it. Some women are emotional to that point. They won't be able to get themselves together for days at a time. So now your whole the comfort and serenity of your house has been what? Thrown off for 3 days because she went to the grave. Because she's that emotional. She couldn't get herself together. If you see this and this type of characteristic in your what? In her, do not allow her to visit the grave. However, if a woman is strong in her aqidah, learn the Tawheed of Allah, strong and firm in her what? In her belief, strong in her monotheism, and in her worship of Allah, knows Tawheed, knows what shirk is, a very strong woman, because there are women out there that are very what? Very strong. They can't handle it. And she said, I just want to go by the grave of my mother. I bet we know we buried her last year. I wanted to go by to just give salams. All right, khalas, good. You understand? Give her salams, take reminder of death, and then leave. Make dua for your mother or dua for your loved one, salams, then what? Take reminder of death and leave. Is it clear? Clear or not clear? Jade. There's more evidences to this. I wanted to talk about reading of Surah Yasin. We based upon all the we mentioned last class. That's not permissible. Due to the fact this innovation is a practice of the people of innovation of today, reciting Surah Yasin over the dead at the gravesite. All those different things is all addressed here. We talked about last class that the only thing that's going to benefit the deceased is those 4 affairs. For some random person reciting, or so-called imam of a masjid, reciting Surah Yasin over the dead, the deceased is not going to benefit from that in the least. There's no narration supporting that, except something weak that they utilize. Something that's a weak narration. But the deceased will not benefit from you reciting Surah Yasin over them after their death. And if you do recite Surah Yasin, you have committed a what? Innovation. Then that reward, like we said, will not be benefited by the deceased. We'll talk about that in another class. There's other bid'ah. There's other innovations that the people practice, which was discussed next class, inshallah. We'll suffice with this for today because it's getting late. But that's to show that that means, or we're just drawing up the conclusion, what everyone, permissible for the women to visit the grave with those conditions. As long as it's not consistent, and there are also a woman that has strong iman, strong faith, her aqeedah is strong, and you do not have the fear that her emotions will not get the best of her. If you're in fear that her emotions are going to get the best of her, and shaitan is going to play around with her and play with her emotions until she falls into something impermissible, don't allow her. Okay, everyone? Because we know, like we said, certain women, they go to the grave, emotions get the best of them, they'll be messed up for days at a time. Crying probably 3 or 4 days straight. I say, man, if I knew you was going to be affected to this extent, I would have never let you go. You understand? Fine. So that's the reason why we just mentioned these details, and these are the things that we need to what? Study. Especially you see the benefits of the narrations of what the ulama of the past, and then drawing it all together. Like we said, you'll find that Ibn al-Qayyim did explain Sunnah Abi Dawood. He did explain it. I have it. It's called Ma'alim al-Sunnah al-Khattabi. It's also been explained in Tahdib al-Sunnah by Ibn al-Qayyim. There's a lot of different sharhs of Sunnah Abi Dawood. Was it Faiduz Zabadi? It's It's Fayruz Zabadi. It is Fayruz Zabadi. Fayruz Zabadi was from Hind. He also explains Sunnah Abi Dawud. But anyway, Ibn al-Qayyim had mentioned in Ma'alim Tahdhib al-Sunan, which is a Sharh al-Sunnah Abi Dawud, which is also very, very beneficial. So as one is able to acquire it, then acquire it. But just to know that all these books are very beneficial, and if one has the time, and he's able, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has allowed one to be, has some knowledge of the Arabic language to study those books, then do so. So you see how knowledge of these days are very important, brothers and sisters. And wallahi, wallahi, wallahi. And I advise the brothers and sisters, keep asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for thabat and guidance too. The thabat, not only just huda, but also thabat ala al-haq. Wallahi, especially in these days and times, it is very, very scary. Scary, scary times that we live in. Scary. It scares me, and I keep making dua. Allah keeps me firm of how many people are going off and deviating. It is scary. People who have way more knowledge than me have now fell into some type of deviation. It's a scary situation. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is making his signs clear that one always has to examine his heart and what he intends and what he does, and be very careful in order to keep and preserve his heart. Be careful of showing off. Be careful of wanting power. Be careful of wanting position. Be careful of wanting leadership. Be careful of wanting to be in charge. Be careful of accepting money from the wrong people. And that is the biggest fitna that I see of what a lot of people are going astray because of. People put money in your hand, and you have fear that their money was going to stop, so you start now watering down the truth or saying things that are not correct in order to maintain your what? Your money flow, or your pocket to be what? Over your pocket to be fat, or your check to keep coming. Wallahi, brothers, like I said, people who have way more knowledge than me have now fallen into deviation. It's scary. Certain things you guys don't know, but I know. Inshallah, I'll probably tell you guys in due time. We are living in the times where people are losing their minds. Trust me, it's global. It's everywhere. It's here in America, and it's in the Middle East. People are losing their minds. I'm talking about everywhere. Delaware, Philadelphia, Saudi Arabia. People are losing their minds out here. Truly. And to me, like I said, I think we really do live in days and times where even to the point where that person has to make his supplications in the morning, evening, it's almost as if it's reached a level. I'm not saying it's wajib. I'm not saying it's wajib because we're not going to say what Allah and His Messenger made it. Because what Allah's Messenger made is made to be highly recommended. But the adhkar al-sabah wal-masa is as almost as if you cannot live except by those supplications and making sure you make them after Fajr and after Asr. And I'm talking about all those supplications. Every single last one of them. And I do every single last one in most cases in the morning and the evening. And if I don't, not able to say all of them, I'll do the majority of them. In the morning, after Fajr, and even the evening. And if I got to drive in my car, I'll do it in my car. To the point where even my wife used to say to me, used to turn to me and say, you say yeah, adhkar? She'd be quiet for like 15 minutes straight. That's how important it is to me. Because I know of the importance of being protected in every single way. Because there's so many shayateen out there from the jinns and the ins and the jinn who are coming to take you and destroy you. Because the shayateen from the ins and the jinn, especially shaitan, he wants to destroy the people of Tawheed and Sunnah and the Salafis. He wants to destroy them. Because they're the only ones who's left who have some type of what? Chance. So he's going to be most hirsi. He's going to have a lot of his desires, he's going to have his diligence upon them the most. And especially at the head of them who are the callers. Trust me, this job that I'm doing right now is not an easy job. It is extremely difficult. Extremely. And trust me, brothers, you guys don't know what I tolerate. I tolerate a lot of things that you do know and I don't, that you think I don't know, but I do know. I tolerate a lot of things. The callers, I feel you guys should be praying, making dua for us, because we put up with a lot of nonsense and a lot of hits from a lot of people. And a lot of whispers, and you can see it, and I know it. Even here in this area, people think I don't see it. I already know. I'm stupid, but I'm not stupid. I am very, very tuned to what's going on. And plus, people these days are like open books in their actions and their speech, and then how they move and how they look at you. You're like an open book. I know what you're thinking. This job is extremely difficult. Very, very hard. And the shaitan wants to take us down, especially the callers. Shaitan wants to he aims his arrows in any way he can any way he can shoot it, he's going to shoot it at us. To bring us down the most. To find something bad to say about so-and-so. Bad to say about Hassan Somali. Bad to say about Anwar Wright. Bad to say about AbdurRazzaaq. Bad to say. Let's find something. Sins. Let's find Aqidah. Let's find something we can say. Something we can say. Find it. Throw that arrow at him. That's the shaitan utilizes to bring the cause of Tawheed down. Because they're very far and few now, brothers and sisters. They're dropping. It's not a lot of people that's left of the truth. You think there is, but it isn't. They're becoming far and few now. Especially this fitna this fitna Muhammad bin Hadi destroyed a lot of people. And I'm not afraid to say it. The fitna Muhammad bin Hadi al-Madkhali has destroyed a lot of people. I think that was the most severe fitna that probably hit after the fitna of Yahya al-Hujuri. That fitna took down a lot. The fitna Muhammad Hadi is recently took down a lot of people if you guys only but knew. People with ilm that you thought that they were what? That you would think they wouldn't be swept away from the currents of fitna, but it swept them away. Swept away a lot of people. And the fitna is going to get worse, it's going to get worse, and it's going to get worse, and it's going to get worse. And if you don't make dua to Allah to protect you, and from the ways you protect yourself, make those supplications after Fajr. Camden and Caden. Make those supplications after Fajr. Open Hisnul Muslim. Memorize all your adhkar al-sabah. Make them after Fajr. Those adhkar will protect you from the shayateen, from the ins and the jinn. They're going to protect you from the shayateen, from those you can't see, and the jinn from the human beings. And protect you from them. And from things happening, and from your heart deviating, and from magic affecting you, or anything affecting you, or affecting your family. It's as if it's almost these days and times where you have no choice but to make those adhkar, or else you're going to be open for attack from anything and anywhere. Is it clear what I'm saying so far, everyone? So open that book of those supplications, Camden or Caden. Memorize those supplications in the morning and the evening, after Fajr and after Asr. The morning remembrances is after Asr and after Maghrib. That's a lot of people think. After Asr starts the time for Adhkar al-Masa, for the evening Adhkar. It's not after Maghrib as some people think. It's after Asr. Yes. You make those supplications after Asr. After you finish praying Asr, sit there in your space and make sure you make those adhkar. And inshallah, bi'idhnillah, you'll see, inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make for you a protection from every type of evil. Like I said, since I've been in those adhkar, those adhkar, nothing never happened to me. Inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continue to protect me. Nothing has happened to me driving in the car, nothing, ever. Except when I get out of it. Somebody hit it, keep it moving. But me being in there, like I said, nothing ever happens. Allah knows best. If you protect the sunnah, the message of Allah, by applying it, Allah will protect you. You apply the sunnah of His messenger, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you what? Protection. There's a narration on the authority of Abdullah ibn Abi Rawaha that the message of Allah said a very tremendous statement to the poet, who's considered the poet of the message of Allah and defending Allah and His messenger. He said, Inna Allaha wa ruhul qudus yunafihani ank ma nafahta anillahi wa rasulih. He says that Allah, he said that Abdullah ibn Rawaha, he says, verily Allah and the Ruhul Qudus will protect you. Will protect you as long as you defend Allah and His messenger. Ma nafahta anillahi wa rasulih. Verily Allah and the Ruhul Qudus are with you. It will defend you and protect you as long as you defend Allah and His Messenger. Understand, everyone? So keep doing this. Inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect you guys and protect all of us. Because may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep our hearts all firm in these days. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.